Hey everybody, this is Deb with Truthification Chronicles, and wow, this one really blew my mind when I started digging into it. A lot of times I get into these different letters that have been sent back and forth, in Congress, and then it reveals something I didn't even know was going on, and it's like, wow, well, this needs to be out there. People need to know this. And this is one of those because we have here Senator Johnson, who is the current chair of the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee. And he had this letter that was in there. It was Johnson follows up on unanswered questions from reporters' lawsuit regarding Obama administration's DOJ. And I thought, well, that's kind of odd. And it's referring to Sharyl Attkisson. I don't know if you've ever heard her, but I think she does a really good job. And, when it comes to reporters, we have to be very careful because while it's true that many of them are not giving us the truth, there are some out there who are really trying their best to get the truth out and to let the American people know what's going on. But they're working against the deep state. There are people actively trying to stop them from getting the truth out. And this really is a situation here with Sharyl Attkisson. And again, I didn't know this was going on with her. I didn't know anything about this until I started researching it. And so I've got several links here, but the basic story, if we go through this letter will kind of show it to us. So I want to get into it, but I thought, well, why did he send a letter Wednesday to Attorney General William Barr and the FBI Christopher Wray for getting answers to this about this investigative journalist? Well, she had this lawsuit that was filed back in 2015. And actually, all of this stuff happened really back in 2011, 2012, 2013. This is when it was going on. And it was actually exposed back then. And so as we go through, I'm going to show you the letter. But the reason it's coming out now is because of the documented abuses of the FISA court. So, was there a FISA on Sharyl Attkisson? I don't know. That's what we want to find out. That's what, this needs to be revealed. Or were they just doing the surveillance without any legal warrant for it? Which is probably what I would say was happening. I mean, that's, more in line with the people during that time period. But anyway, so this was the introductory. This is a press release that they sent out. And then here's the letter itself. Now I'm going to read through the letter. It's 3 pages long, and this will give us the overview of what was going on. And then she's got some articles that I want to point out and some other stuff. And all of the links, like always, will be down below in the description. Sometimes you have to click a little triangle or something like that to pop it open. And then you'll be able to see all of the links down there so you can go and read the full articles or anything that I haven't read. Anyway, this came out on January 8th, 2020, and it's from Johnson. It goes to Barr and it goes to Wray. And it is in February 2011, CBS News investigative journalist Sharyl Attkisson, she's not there anymore, by the way, at CBS, but she was at the time, began reporting on Operation Fast and Furious, an operation by the Department of Justice Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms that allowed Mexican cartel members and gun traffickers to illegally purchase firearms with the hope of trafficking and later recapturing them. By the way, whoever came up with that idea? That was one of the stupidest ideas out there. Instead, ATF lost track of, quote, a large number of those weapons. In October 2012, Ms. Attkisson began reporting on the attacks in Benghazi that resulted in the death of the U.S. Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans. So, see, she's been reporting on stuff that was not what the mainstream media really likes to have reported on these days. In mid to late 2011, Ms. Attkisson noticed anomalies with several of her work and personal electronic devices. These anomalies persisted through 2012. In mid-2013, Ms. Attkisson and CBS announced publicly that her personal devices had been accessed and compromised. The compromise of Ms. Attkisson's electronic devices is troubling and occurred around the same time as the targeting of investigative journalists that occurred under the Obama administration. For example, the DOJ under President Obama, quote, secretly seized phone records from the Associated Press, labeled one Fox News reporter, James Rosen, a criminal co-conspirator, sought grand jury testimony from another reporter, and obtained a search warrant for Mr. Rosen's personal emails. Okay, and you can see, here are some other ones. I will show you a couple of these, and the links will be down below. So, on February 18, 2015, Ms. Attkisson filed a lawsuit claiming violations of her Fourth Amendment rights. She sued not only named individuals, including then Attorney General Eric Holder, but also unnamed federal agents who allegedly perpetrated the compromise of her electronic devices. However, by May 15, 2018, a federal district court had dismissed all of her claims. On May 17, 2019, a divided three-judge panel of the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals turned down Ms. Attkisson's attempt to revive her lawsuit against the government for allegedly unauthorized surveillance of her work and personal computers. But in a dissenting opinion, Judge James Wynn Jr. wrote that, quote, Attkisson never got a meaningful opportunity to pursue her claims because the government did everything in its power to run out the clock on her lawsuit. In fact, quote, the district court dismissed her case with prejudice. And when it says it's been dismissed with prejudice, that means that they can't come back and sue on that again. Okay, I know it seems kind of opposite to what I would think it would be, but yeah, it just means that it's a dead deal against the unnamed federal agents who allegedly compromised her electronic devices because she was not able to identify them, quote, even though the government's delaying tactics deprived her of any meaningful opportunity to engage in the discovery necessary to identify them. Judge Wynn described the government's position as, quote, Kafkaesque and, quote, tantamount to asserting that early discovery should never be available in a case against unnamed defendants. So, yeah, he stood up for her there a little bit. In 2013, as ranking member of this committee, Senator Tom Coburn sought answers from then Attorney General Eric Holder regarding the government's actions in the hacking and surveillance of Ms. Attkisson's computers. In 2014, Senator Coburn sent a letter noting that DOJ's response answered none of his questions. In 2015, as chairman of the Senate Judiciary Committee, Senator Charles Grassley also sought answers. In March 2018, I wrote to DOJ's Office of the Inspector General, DOJ OIG, and received a copy of its abbreviated report of investigation regarding its analysis of Ms. Attkisson's personal laptop. To this day, however, other than DOJ OIG's response, the government has successfully resisted providing any meaningful answers or insights into the matter. In light of the recently documented abuse of FISA Intelligence Surveillance Act applications by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I am especially concerned about these unresolved questions regarding the alleged surveillance of Ms. Attkisson. It is well past time that Ms. Attkisson, Congress, and the American public receive answers to questions that have remained outstanding for over 6 years. These questions include, and these were questions that were asked to Eric Holder at the time, but, that didn't happen. He didn't respond. Was Ms. Attkisson ever a witness, subject, or target in an investigation by the DOJ to include the FBI and ATF? And again, there's more documentation. You can always go through those. Has any employee, contractor, or other representative of the DOJ, to include the FBI and ATF, ever obtained or sought to obtain records concerning Ms. Attkisson? If yes, please describe those efforts, their legal basis, and identify the individuals involved. Has any employee, contractor, or other representative of the DOJ, to include the FBI and ATF, ever attempted to remove, exfiltrate, or otherwise transfer data to or from any electronic device used by Ms. Attkisson without her consent? If yes, please describe those efforts, their legal basis, and identify the individuals involved. Has any employee, contractor, or other representative of the DOJ, to include the FBI and ATF, ever obtained access to any electronic device used by Ms. Attkisson without her consent? If yes, please describe those efforts, their legal basis, and identify the individuals involved. Other than the DOJ OIG's review of her personal computer, has the DOJ, to include FBI and ATF, investigated the compromise of Ms. Attkisson's electronic devices? If so, please describe the results of the investigation or review. If not, why not? The Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs is authorized by Rule 25 of the Standing Rules to investigate the efficiency, economy, and effectiveness of all agencies and departments of the government. So he includes this. What I really like about the way the Republicans do it, when they send these letters, they put in there, they document the actual rules that govern why they are looking for this material. See, this is unlike what's been happening in the House with their supposed oversight, and I put that in air quotes, oversight, because they're not following rules. They have no reason to get this material. And I think this is one reason why the Trump administration is actually stonewalling them on this, because most of the time they don't have a legitimate oversight reason to get it, and they can't list the rules that they are actually following and that they're using to get this information. They just want information on Trump so they can possibly twist it around as dirt. Anyway, so it's signed by Ron Johnson. And so that is the letter. That's kind of an overview of what's going on. Well, let's go through some of these articles. This one is from the Washington Post, and it was dated May 13th of 2013. And it says, under sweeping subpoenas, Justice Department obtained AP phone records in leak investigation. In a sweeping and unusual move, the Justice Department secretly obtained 2 months' worth of telephone records of journalists working for the Associated Press as part of a year-long investigation into the disclosure of classified information about a failed al-Qaeda plot last year. Okay, now, take this in perspective and remember what has just recently been revealed about John Solomon. Yeah, they did this to John Solomon too and released his phone records along with Devin Nunes. Okay, where was the authorization to get that? How did Schiff get those phone records? Okay, where did he get them from? And that's a huge question. So I think that is something that was even being asked back then by the Republicans. But of course, you know, they had to fight against the Democrats, and because Obama's people were still in charge of the Department of Justice, it was bad news. So they were stonewalling them. They couldn't get that information. Well, it's time, I think, to pay the piper here on this. But anyway, in August of 2013, CBS News confirms Sharyl Attkisson's computer was hacked. I mean, there is no question about it. There she is. Hi, Sharyl. Anyway, they did hack her computer, and that is, you know, a CBS News spokeswoman, Sonia McNair, said that a cybersecurity firm hired by CBS News, quote, has determined through forensic analysis that, quote, Attkisson's computer was accessed by an unauthorized external unknown party on multiple occasions in late 2012. Evidence suggests this party performed all access remotely using Attkisson's accounts. While no malicious code was found, forensic analysis revealed an intruder had executed commands that appeared to involve search and exfiltration of data. This party also used sophisticated methods to remove all possible indications of unauthorized activity and alter system times to cause further confusion. CBS News is taking steps to identify the responsible party and their method of access. So that was very interesting. It was confirmed. I mean, this is definitely confirmed, and this was back August 7th of 2013. So what did the FBI do? Well, they didn't do squat. So this was December 17th of 2014, and Judicial Watch joins Sharyl Attkisson in lawsuit against Justice Department to obtain FBI records about Attkisson. She had to file FOIA requests to find out information about herself. Yeah, that's really true. And so they went through and they joined with her on this thing. And I want to show you this in particular because according to documents obtained last month by Judicial Watch in a separate lawsuit, the DOJ and the White House targeted the former CBS correspondent as a result of her investigations into the growing Operation Fast and Furious scandal in an October 4th, 2011 email to White House Deputy Press Secretary Eric Schultz. Attorney General Eric Holder's top press aide, Terry Schmaler, described Attkisson as, quote, out of control. Schmaler added ominously, quote, I'm also calling Sheryl's editor and reaching out to Schieffer, an apparent reference to CBS chief Washington correspondent and Face the Nation moderator Bob Schieffer. Schultz responded, get this, quote, good, her piece was really bad for the AG. Yeah. So in other words, she was making Holder look bad. So, we gotta stop her, man. We gotta make sure she doesn't make Holder look bad in this whole Fast and Furious scandal. Oh, even though he was guilty. Anyway, so going on. This one came out. This was an article from her website that she wrote. And this was on August 1st of 2017. And this was an update, the computer intrusion lawsuit against the federal government. She wanted to keep people updated on what was going on with this lawsuit. Now, I'm going to scroll down just a little bit here. Sorry. I know it drives you nuts when I do that. But here's where I want to talk about. Meantime, instead of helping us get at the facts, the Department of Justice has attempted to block the federal lawsuit at every turn. For example, their lawyers improperly ignored our first notice asking that the appropriate U.S. Postal Service employee or employees appear to give testimony for discovery, and then the DOJ lawyers didn't even go through the appropriate legal processes to oppose discovery. They literally ignored the motion entirely. If the nation's top law enforcement body doesn't follow the rule of law, what recourse does a citizen have? Okay, these are actually, all of these are very good articles, and I will leave them down below, the links to them. But she made a very good point there. It's like, wait, what is going on? And I realized that, this is somebody that we don't really know, but each of us, each American should be feeling this, because if they can do it to her, and she's much higher profile than you and me, they can do it to us peons too. So what would stop them? Nothing's going to stop them. And this was going on. Now, keep in mind, this was in 2017 here, this particular one. So you know who was in the Department of Justice. Do you remember who the deputy AG was? Yeah, well, keep that in mind. By the way, she did an article or a book called The Smear, How Shady Political Operatives and Fake News Control What You See, What You Think, and How You Vote. And this was back in June of 2017 that this came out. I haven't read it, but wow, I just found it and I thought, that sounds like a really good book to read. Definitely. Okay, so here is another one. And this is an update from July 28th. And of 2019. So this is much closer. And she goes on and she talks about, well, here's the continuation of it. This is what's going on. What's happening? Well, down here she says, if our lawsuit against the government's bad actors is not successful, Judge James Wynn pointed out the government will have been handed a playbook to allow it to avoid accountability for all of its illegal spying on American journalists and other U.S. citizens. This is important. And I agree with that. And she has a GoFundMe account if you want to read more about it, because I think it's really good what she says here. Thanks to you, I've been able to keep up the fight and am pleased to announce that a former federal agent has confessed to being part of the government's spy operation against me. More importantly, he says the Baltimore-based group illegally spied on many U.S. citizens in the same way. As such, we have filed new lawsuits seeking justice. Now remember, the former lawsuit, that judge ruled he dismissed with prejudice. So that means she couldn't bring that suit again. But that was against the 50-some agents that actually were part of this. And she didn't have them identified. So that's why that one was dismissed like it was. because they said, well, if you don't even know who the people are, how can you know what they did? But they didn't really give her time for discovery. So it was like, why not? Anyway, on this, she goes on and she says, they've filed new lawsuits seeking justice. I've learned a lot in the past couple of years. I've learned that when the Justice Department won't hold its own accountable, the ability to get justice in civil court can be nearly impossible for an ordinary citizen, even when irrefutable forensic proof and admissions are in hand, such as in my case. There are 6 ways from Sunday that the Justice Department can make sure the proof is never seen by a jury. Yeah, kind of scary. But anyway, I wanted to point that out to you for her. And then there's this article, which came out a year ago, January 23rd, 2019. And she pointed this out. Now, remember, she's writing these, so this is from her perspective. No reason to plant a bug or follow people around on foot. That's expensive, time-consuming, and potentially traceable. Accessing communications through the major telecoms companies or internet providers and search engines, that's easy, free, and undetectable. Piece of cake. Yeah, something to keep in mind. And she's got some more questions here that were asked a while back, actually, in 2013. These questions were asked but never answered. And again, you can go through and read this whole thing. I'll leave the link down below. She says, I find irony in the fact that, in its brief response, the Justice Department implies I should have approached the FBI for, quote, assistance, especially since I now have learned that, months ago, the FBI opened a computer intrusion case with me listed as the, quote, victim, but oddly enough, never bothered to reach out to me. How often does the FBI start a case without notifying or trying to collect basic information from the supposed victim? It doesn't seem as if they're trying very hard to help me get to the bottom of it. So this was a really good article. This one's updated and, so it's a little more current, like I said, as of January 23rd last year. But this one just came out January 9th. And this is the one you really want to get to, because this is where she talks about the government agent admits illegally spying on Sharyl Attkisson, implicates government colleagues. Yep. So here's the opening for the case. These are the plaintiffs. And then look down here. See who it's top of the list here on the defendants? Yep, Rod Rosenstein. Well, hang on, folks, because I got more coming here. You remember Rod Rosenstein. Okay, the Attkisson lawsuit claims that in March 2011, defendants Sean Henry, Sean Bridges, Robert Clark, and Ryan White, all of whom were government employees connected to a special multi-agency federal government task force based in Baltimore, Maryland. Hey, remember who was in charge of Baltimore, Maryland? Yeah. Seems there's been a lot of corruption going on in that area, that's for sure. Were ordered by defendant Rosenstein to conduct home computer surveillance on Attkisson and other U.S. citizens. So, who ordered it? You got it. Rosenstein did. Rosenstein's the one who ordered this kind of surveillance. And not just on her, but other U.S. citizens. Now, this Sean Henry guy, he's one of the defendants. Sean Henry is one of them who was part of this. Well, Sean Henry was head of the FBI's Washington field office. In 2012, Henry left the FBI and now is president of CrowdStrike Services, a company that seeks to mitigate targeted online attacks on corporate and government networks globally. Oh, or as otherwise known, the group, the organization that said, oh yes, the DNC servers were hacked. Yeah, even when they weren't. So, this is so significant. This Henry guy, remember, is the guy who Rosenstein delegated and ordered to do surveillance on these people and on other U.S. citizens. Who all those other U.S. citizens are, we don't know. Could be anybody at all. And yeah, so what does he do? He leaves there. He was the head of the Washington field office of the FBI, and then he left, and now he's president of CrowdStrike. Oh, Can you make this up anymore? You know what? Honestly, as a writer, if I would write all of these connections in, people wouldn't believe it. It would be an unbelievable novel. You'd sit there and go, oh yeah, right, these people are connected like this. But no, it's serious. They really are. They're connected all over the place. When you start looking into it, it's like, wow, yeah. And again, kind of centering around the Baltimore field office. Well, check out this guy. Now, this was one of the other Sean Bridges was a special agent with the U.S. Secret Service for approximately 6 years, operating out of the Baltimore field office. Between 2012 and 2014, he was assigned to the Baltimore Silk Road Task Force, a multi-agency group investigating illegal activity on the Silk Road, a covert online marketplace for illicit goods, including drugs. That's, like on the dark web. So they did a sting on the Silk Road and actually shut it down, but it keeps changing. If you know anything about the dark net or dark web, whatever they call it, deep net, deep web. I've heard all those different terms. But anyway, if you know anything about it, they tend to change their addresses all the time. So they have a hard time knowing exactly where it is and tracking it down as much. But yeah, there was a great big bust in that somewhere between 2012 and 2014. I think they did a sting and they actually did shut them down and arrest some people, but it's hard to keep it down. I tell you, things on the deep web, it's really kind of tough. Anyway, so Bridges, in 2015 and 2017, Bridges was convicted of corruption related to his government work and is now serving a prison sentence. So, yes, these are the people that Rosenstein chose and told them to spy on American citizens. Did they have any legal authority to do so? Yep, I'm kind of thinking not. Yeah. So I wanted to point those out to you. Now, if you look at this, she's got a lot of links on here. So if you look at this Leslie, and I'm not even going to try that, Leslie S., an attorney headed up the FBI's electronic surveillance technology section. He says that a colleague asked him for help in examining Attkisson's computer in late 2012. This Leslie S. says a forensic exam conducted by a technician with expertise in government surveillance tools confirmed that spyware proprietary to a federal agency was found in Attkisson's computer. Yeah. This Leslie S. says he and his colleagues were shocked and outraged to learn the government was spying on a journalist. Yeah. I personally could not imagine that something like this could ever happen in the United States of America. This is huge, folks. This is huge. And this is all part of what was going on under the Obama administration and then carrying over into the Trump administration as they were holdovers from the deep state trying to protect what they were doing. And so the Trump administration now is working to get rid of these people because if you noticed, a lot of them it said former employee. And so they're not working there anymore. Yep, it's kind of scary. And here she says again, there are 6 ways from Sunday that the Justice Department can make sure the proof is never seen by a jury. That should scare all Americans, in my opinion. Really. So anyway, that's the story on Sharyl Attkisson and the surveillance that was going on. And that's why Senator Johnson wants to make sure that that issue is addressed, because it not only is just her, it is the whole idea that there are people in our Department of Justice or in our FBI who are misusing the ability to spy on American citizens. And they are doing it to spy, especially on journalists. Very, very bad news. And it kind of boggles my mind that more of the press aren't up in arms about this, because this kind of stuff needs to be exposed. But then again, a lot of the press are in positions where they can present stories like that, but they don't have the authority to actually do the stories unless the higher ups tell them they can do it. And this is a real issue with some of the major mainstream media, that the reporters themselves could be very honest and above board people, but if they're not going to be able to get their stories put out there, they can only do what their editors are going to allow them to do. And that should concern all of us. So that's what I've got for you on this one. I want to thank you for stopping by, and I'll see y'all later.